it's your girl Alicia. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I wanted to talk about these phones, y'all. Because I'm so tired of these phones. I'm so tired of being on my phone. And I'm tired of social media. However, I don't know a way for me to unstick myself to this phone. And aside from the things that we need to do on our phone, like make calls, FaceTimes, emails, whatever, I feel like I find myself now thinking back to the way that the internet and social media was when I was growing up and how life felt more full then. So granted, I started being on social media in 2011, and the landscape of social media and the world's usage of social media wasn't as vast as it is now. But then I was still going Pop Tropica. I would be on Me's. I would do the cool math games. Like, there were always other things to do on the computer other than buying stuff. And social media platforms then didn't have bots and stuff. I was actually interacting with real people. I mean, at least from my experience, nobody who I became friends with over the internet has been a fake person. So I was integrated in the internet community with real people, and I was able to learn from their life experiences, learn from their backgrounds, and build friendships with them. But now, I'm not saying that people can't, build friendships on social media, because people meet people online every day. But I definitely would be more reserved when it comes to it if I were to be the younger version of myself in today's world. And I can only imagine, if I'm feeling like this, how somebody that is younger than me would feel. And granted, somebody who's younger than me, someone who's younger than me who was born into a world where iPhone was a major thing. Anybody who came onto social media, I would say probably within about 2015, 2016, you didn't miss everything, but you definitely missed a lot because you was coming in at the peak end. So therefore, things were slowly starting to shift and change. But we obviously didn't know how drastic the changes were until now. But nonetheless, then it was just so different. Like, real life, to this day, 7th Streeter, I don't think she uses that Twitter anymore, but she still follows me. Miss Tiffany Evans, she follows me on Twitter. Who else follow me on Twitter? Tinashe. She followed me first, reached out to me in DMs to promote what was the first mixtape she had that was so good. So all of these nostalgic feelings that I'm having around social media, I am mad that I can't create that today, because everything is so aesthetic. Everything is so behind the paywall. Everything is so confined. I feel like back then, creativity was something that was rewarded, or you could find your niche corner of the internet so that you can have your own creativity. I was a fanfic girl. I wasn't a Wattpad fanfic girl, but I was a Tumblr fanfic girl, okay? And in today's world, we have things like Substack, and we still do have Wattpad, but correct me if I'm wrong, Wattpad girlies, but is there not a subscription for Wattpad now? And isn't there something with Substack where they own the stuff that you publish, or whatever? Granted, I could be ignorant and I could be just spewing stuff that I saw on the internet, the last 2 things that I said. And it may not be true, but nonetheless, even if regarding those 2 specific examples isn't true, I do still think that there are other examples of something like that where now it's a paywall. Once again, it's a paywall. Like, I can't just enjoy something without having to pay an additional fee for it. And a common phrase that's been going around is create, not consume. And I think that phrase is what really sparked me or inspired me to make this video, because as I'm scrolling, I'm trying to remind myself, create and not consume. Because even back then, if there was space or balance for me to create and consume back then, because I could find a little download of Adobe Photoshop, whatever version of it was at the time, and learn how to use Adobe and build those creative skills that I need to I granted I wanted to be working in the film industry, the TV industry at first, until I eventually decided to work in the music industry. But nonetheless, I wanted to work in a creative industry, and me having access to Tumblr and having people who will post, downloads for Adobe Photoshop, on top of going to a high school that had a morning news show that I was the host for, or I would be behind the switcher and making sure that everything that would pop up on the screen would pop up at the right times. All of those things I was able to learn and grow for a cheap or no cost, and that led to the trajectory of where I am now. Am I where I want to be? No. But can I definitely say that I can recognize how every job that I've had, regardless if it was as an office assistant, as a student clerk, at McDonald's, at Five Below, wherever it may have been, all of these experiences have led me to be the person who I am today, and has led me to have not necessarily the work ethic, but the knowledge I have for me to be able to apply it in my job or in whatever I choose to do. And granted, there are plenty of people who are my age who I'm sure may not have necessarily had the resources, or who may not have known where to go to find the resources. And I think that with us having social media, or I believe that with us having social media, it doesn't mean that people, just because we have essentially an encyclopedia in our hands, that doesn't mean that people are now all of a sudden going to have the resources that they didn't have back then today. Because if that was the case, then everybody would be at the place that they need to be, because everybody would have found the resource that they need to get them to where they want to be. And I think another thing that may be clouding my judgment is because of the fact that I was on social media when I was younger. So me having social media, but me also having that 8 hours of going to school, and then eventually when I was in high school, going to McDonald's to work after school, there were still spaces for you to go. There were still spaces for people to be. And I feel like I remember people still engaging with people in person, even if you had your phone. And maybe the reason why people then were able to disconnect from their phones more then than now, aside from the fact that obviously everything that I mentioned before, is like Instagram. Back then, it was the chronological. When you get to the bottom, it was the bottom. Now it's never ending, and you see something from 5 weeks ago, 2 months ago, and then something from 2 seconds ago. And just a little, side note or caveat in relation to the last thing that I just said, that's another reason why I believe that class reunions, high school class reunions, and family reunions are seemingly going to go obsolete, because why would you want to go to your 10-year reunion if for the past 10 years or 20 years, 10, 15, whatever, you've been keeping up with what your classmates are doing? And I think that even though we do have this, I don't think that people should think about it like that, because we know that social media is people curating who they want to be, and it's not necessarily the person who they really are. And obviously it's not to say that you go to your class reunion and Joe Schmo finna sit over here and tell you everything that he didn't want you to see on Instagram, but nonetheless, you can still build a connection, and you can still, having that in person is, oh my gosh, I feel like I sound like a boomer saying this. But having that in person is just like, you don't have to sit here and question tones. You don't have to sit here and think about, whether or not this person is going to perceive something, because you're still going to think about, some people are still going to think about the way that people perceive them, even in person. But nonetheless, that can be alleviated by the tone of the way that somebody is talking. And you can't get nobody's tone by the way that they type it, unless you really know this person like, the back of your hand. And obviously, I do think that there are still great things that happen on social media. I do think that it is just now become a space, like the dead internet theory is becoming that. What will the changes in social media do to the world that we live in because of the way that we have implemented social media and the internet so deeply into our lives? If things crash with the internet, then how will we be able to move forward as a society where we have now a generation of kids who only know a world with phones. They don't know a world with dial up, the computer with the booty on the back and the monitor you sit on the ground. They know the slim 13-inch Air MacBook. And what will the last time, like, I want to know what people is going to be talking about with social media back then. I mean, in the future. Like, when I have grandkids and my grandkids in like 2065, it's like, yeah, grandma, what was you doing in 2020? What was you doing in 2025? What was you surviving? But yeah, I'm going to end this by saying my mama was right. It do be them phones, but really they was just saying it too early. Like, they should have left that for younger Gen Z or early Gen Alpha, because it didn't start. I don't think it started being them phones. Like, it couldn't have started being them phones until I graduated high school. Like, it couldn't have started being them phones until then, because real life, as aforementioned, everything nostalgic that I just talked about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you all think about the future of social media and the internet, and how social media and scrolling on your phone has impacted you. So thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.